and we can start with the prayer.
Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena.
Can you hear the prayer? Somehow.
Yopakarot tam pravaram munina.
Can everybody hear the audio?
Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi.
I think. Can you hear? Sorry, my audio.
Yes, Rajesh, we can hear you.
Okay. Did you all hear the prayer?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you very much for joining. So today we are going to cover all the verses of chapter 1, which is really great, 51 verses. So we are in the final stage of chapter 1. This topic is not that easy, but you will get clarity when you get further. So we were discussing the different type of samadhis. We talked about savitarka, savichara. Those were the two areas we were discussing. And vitarka and vichara samadhi has two subcategories. One is called savitarka and the other one is called nirvitarka. And then savichara followed by nirvichara. And all these things put together, we call it as sabija samadhi. So we just need to understand what is savitarka, vitarka and vichara. Vitarka means the object of meditation is a physical object, something you can touch, feel, or interact with your sense organs. Nirvitarka means another thing is that Nirvitarka is exactly the same object of meditation, but savitarka means when you think about a physical object, you construct a mental object. The construction of the mental object is not just the perception. On top of that, there will be inference and other addition from our mind. Right? When I see a tree, I may recollect my connection with that tree. That is never associated with the tree, but that comes from our mind. So we discuss the fact that the human mind has two functions. One is there is a cognitive function. The second one is an analytical function. When the object is constructed and continuously fed or stayed in the mind with these two functions together, that becomes savitarka. When you deliberately shut down the analytical function of the mind and just keep your observation on the cognitive function alone, that becomes nirvitarka. The same applied to savichara, nirvichara. Vichara means you're focusing on the subtle objects, not the physical object. So it cannot be directly seen. So it could be an emotion or a subtle object like love, anger, something which you cannot see, but definitely you can feel it. That's one type of object. Second thing is, when you see a physical object, that there is subtle aspects to that matter. For example, we talked about this in detail, right? When you see the water, for example, we can say that water is made up of tanmatras, and that tanmatras can go back all the way up to Mula Prakriti. So these were some of the topics. And here also, you can create the mental object of that subtle object, either through your perception or your vision. Second thing is colored by the intelligence, inferences, continuously. So this is savitarka, savichara, nirvitarka, nirvichara. And we said that this meditation on this subtle object, what it does is it increases the sattva of your mind. When the sattva content of your mind increases, what happens? Your clarity increases. Your ability to see things as they are increases in your meditative practices. As I said earlier, these are advanced meditation techniques. Nowhere in our meditative practice, no teacher teaches these things. These are for the advanced yogis. As we joked last year, we really wanted to see the end-to-end picture and extremely focused on the beginning stages of the meditation. So we saw that. So now we are going to stretch this Savichara meditation to all the way up to the deep samadhi, where you can go to the Kaivalya state. So again, this is subtle. So please understand intellectually right now as an aparokshanubhuti. Later point of time, this becomes a direct experience to you if you practice it properly and if you have enough grace from the God. So this is where we were. So let's go to this advanced topic. We can fairly go quickly because we already have the background. So we covered up to verse 46, up to Sabija Samadhi. So the above mentioned Samapati, right? It is called Sabija Samadhi, Savitarka, Nirvitarka. So now we are going from Sabija Samadhi to the next level. So let's listen to the sutra.
Nirvichara Vaisharadhyedhyatma Prasadaha.
So Nirvichara Vaisheshadye Adhyatma Prasada. This is beautiful. So Nirvichara meditation. So the means, remember, Savichara, Nirvichara. The beauty of the Nirvichara is it is the subtlest form of meditation. So when you do this subtlest form of meditation, in the previous verse, we have seen that the clarity increases. Why the clarity increases? The sattva content of the mind increases, and increase of sattva gives increase of clarity. But pause for a moment. I know that this is theoretical, but even it is theoretical, we need to have logic. So when you say sattva increases clarity and purity, what does that mean? We just need to go back to our definition of what is sattva, what is rajas, and what is tamas. Sattva means it is the natural state of the mind. When the mind functions exactly as designed, in a normal way, in its optimal way, that is sattva. Rajas can be looked at as a state where the mind is hyperactive. Yes, sometimes the mind needs to be hyperactive. But if the mind is always hyperactive, that's a problem. It's an emergency. It's a fight, flight, or a freeze mode, this hyperactivity. The modern definition of stress is a classic example. Do you need stress? Of course you need stress. But if you are in stress always, that's a problem. And when you are in stress, do you get clarity of thinking? No, everything will be shut down. You will be just programmed to face that particular situation. So special case management. When there is a fire alarm, I'm not worried about thinking about my investments, or I'm not thinking about planning the admission for my child, or I'm not worried about what I'm going to cook today. I'm not going to think creatively, nothing. I don't need creativity. I don't need any thinking. I don't need any strategic planning. What I need is just get out of that room. So for that, stress is designed, and that is the purpose. That is the purpose of rajas. When you're doing a job, if you want to focus on that job and get executed without much creativity and everything, rajas is fantastic. So when you are in rajas, when you are in that stressed mood, classic example, you're extremely stressed to finish a work in a deadline. You're not creative. You'll be doing it quickly and you'll be going out. But if you're in a creative mode, you get that clarity. Do you need more example? When Archimedes was told by the king, this is the most conventional example in the history. When Archimedes was told by the king that if you don't find this, your head will be gone, he put all his effort to calculate whether the, you know the story, right? Whether the crown was pure gold or not. He could not figure it out. Why? The mind was not clear completely. Because of the rajas. Baskin-Robbins copywriting means the logo designing example. I told you. She tried all her level best to finish it. While she gave it up, it came to him. I told multiple examples, right? The composition of the song Vande Mataram by A.R. Rahman. He could not figure it out. But when he let it go and went to his studios in the midnight, the song came to him. So like that, when there is sattva, there will be clarity. And how to keep sattva state? Practice the subtle meditation, savichara type of meditation. From the physical level, when you go to the subtle level, that means the hyperactive mind becomes naturally active. Tamas means what? It is stagnant. It's not working enough. So tamas also can create problem. Sattva can create problem. Sorry, rajas can create problem, but sattva is going to be the appropriate. Now you may ask, Shankaracharya immediately jumps and write it down. This is the beauty of Shankaracharya, right? He tells, that means that can you live without tamas and rajas? Impossible. If rajas is not there, if you're chased by a tiger, can you escape? No, you need that. And if tamas is not there, can you sleep? You won't. So, Shankaracharya comments that rajas and tamas should always be under the sattva. If sattva governs, controls, and monitors the rajas and tamas, you're okay. So in the seat of this meditation, savichara meditation, unlike Bhagavad Gita, whenever we talk about Yoga Sutra, you are in a highly spiritual practice you're doing. Bhagavad Gita means you're going and working outside. So always keep that distinction in mind, right? This is designed and told towards people who are highly yogis and spiritual practitioners. So a person in his deep meditation, savichara type and nirvichara type of meditation, he is able to focus on the subtle object, even reducing the the inability of the mind to interpret. He will be able to see things as it is beautifully. So this is going to increase the lucidity and clarity of the mind. This is the final stage. See, systematically what we are going to do, please understand the approach of yoga. The yoga path or the Vedanta path or the Nyaya path or Vaisheshika path or the Sankhya path, the end goal is the same. You want to have a face-to-face, undisturbed, distorted view of yourself. I'm not able to see myself properly. When I look for myself, I take myself as what? Jiva, or the body, or all the problems, right? So first, I want to understand who I am so that I can differentiate between who I am and what I have. Sometimes what is going to happen? Who I am is always mistaken as a compound entity of who I am plus what I am. I'm not complicating it because you can directly experience this in a dream. in a dream, your self-identity is with the dreamer. Imagine why, means you can appreciate it as a dream only after getting out of the dream. Think through this. This is not that difficult. While in the dream, what was my understanding of myself? Imagine I was going through Corona in dream. What was my honest self-assessment about myself in that dream? I have Corona. Why? I'm not seeing myself as the consciousness. Rather, I see myself as a combination of consciousness plus that dream body. Who got Corona in the dream? The consciousness didn't get the dream Corona, because if that was the case, when you wake up, you should have had the Corona. So the Corona was affected for the dream body, which is something I possessed during the dream, means during the dream, within the dreams, constrained in the dream space and dream time. But my self-identity with the dream body created the problem. So the only solution is convert that dream into a lucid dream. For me to convert that dream into a lucid dream, I need to see who am I. And even right now, I'm sitting here like a dream. So please don't think that this is a dream. See, even dream has a certain order of reality. The dream problems are my problem when I live in the dream space and dream time. Don't you get suffering in the dream? I remember I had a dream, and when I was waking up, tears were coming out of my eyes. That means what? I was suffering in the dream. And sometimes the mental pain, and science proved, this is beautiful. The science proved that the stress you get in the dream also can impact your body. Imagine. Your brain won't differentiate whether it is dream or waking state. If you keep a status stress in your dream, that is a problem for your body. Some people have that disease. So the goal of the yoga is what? It is trying through these super duper meditation practices. It is trying to keep a state of mind, because usually what is preventing me in seeing myself as consciousness? The projections of the mind. So I'm trying to reduce all the projections of the mind. I'm shutting down my inference function. I'm keeping the cognitive function because something needs to be cognized, because otherwise I cannot see myself. So what is going to happen? I'm shutting down everything so that the consciousness can see itself, because usually the consciousness won't see itself. There is always something on the screen of your mind, so the consciousness will be carried away with that. So the idea of the yoga practice is you're reducing everything such that I can see myself. So this is where you try to develop these subtle practices. You try to develop this mental clarity. For what? I want to see myself. So this is the idea. So this is what this particular sutra means. So let's try to see a little bit more on this. So constant flow of chitta, it will be dominated with the swatik content. And when the chitta is the content of the mind is dominated with the swatik content, purity and clarity will be there. Imagine the lake example. If the lake has sattvic content of the mind is swatik, means still there is water between me and the diamond lying down. But what is the nature of that water? That water is transparent, that is pure. So nirvichara samadhi is going to give that clarity. It is called adhyatma prasada. So help me to things as they are without being interpreted or distorted. So mind you, right, even the purest Swatik, you are not directly seeing the Purusha. You are seeing the Purusha as a reflection of your mind. So it's a kind of inference. So all these Sabija Samadhi is just giving an inference. You're just getting, okay, you're giving the most as best as you can. The Purusha is reflected in the mind, and you're seeing a reflection of the Purusha, which is not that much disturbed. So this is the state of getting closer to that Kaivalya. See, in a step-by-step process, initially we are learning to control the mind. Then once you control the mind, you're trying to shut down certain functionalities of the mind. You're keeping the mind. What is the ultimate goal? Ultimate goal is almost silence your mind. So the consciousness is still active. There is nothing else other than itself to get means conscious of. So it will feel the self. And once you get that, you can go back to the original state. Once you know that the blue ray is removed, blue cloth is removed, you know that the crystal is white. Thereafterwards, when that blue light is superimposed, you know that that is not an inherent property of the crystal. It is just a superimposition. That is the difference. Okay, this is the clarity. So let's go to the next sutra.
Ritambhara tatra prajna.
Ritambhara tatra prajna. Ritam is a technical term used in our Vedas. Satyam karishyami, ritam varishyami, etc. We will see the meaning. Meaning, it is the truth. It is the absolute truth. That is the meaning. Ritam means it is the absolute truth. That which cannot be negated, that which holds everything together, that is known as Ritam. Ritambhara tatra prajna. So that state, in that state, you are directly seeing at least a reflection of that truth. So when the mind is filled with Swatik thoughts, remember, it's a sequencing activity. When the mind is filled with Swatik thoughts, when the mind is not doing any analytical function, what you're seeing in the mirror of the mind is Ritam, truth. You're seeing the consciousness as a reflection. So this is the idea. So in that state, you're directly encountering at least an understanding of the truth. So let's see. So in this particular state, what the yogi sees, the yogi perceives the highest truth. Rita, it is an old Vedic term. You can see this word used in extremely a lot in Vedas. It is denoting the order of underlying and controlling the harmony of the cosmos, or dharma. Or in other words, it is denoted as the truth or the absolute reality. In this particular context, we can call it as Purusha. So that is the next sutra. So once again, right, just think through the sequence. It is theoretically, it is not difficult. Experientially, it is the most difficult thing. Theoretically, once again, you're doing the Savitarka Samadhi. You're moving to Nirvitarka. So Savitarka, so the shutting down of the cognition is learned at the physical level. Then you move to the means Savichara Samadhi. Savichara Samadhi itself is complicated. So you're not directly meditating on something you can see and experience. You're meditating upon a subtle object. Then on top of that, you're shutting down this analytical function. So that time, what is going to happen? When the analytical function is not there, the inherent samskaras of my mind is not interfering with me. As a result, sattva will be predominant in my mind. I'll have more clarity and lucidity in what I'm seeing. In that state, I'm directly coming to an experience with the actual truth, which is the Purusha. So this is the sequence. Please keep that in mind. So the next one is 49, right? So what is going to happen at this time? So let's listen.
श्रुतानुमान प्रज्ञाभ्याम् अन्यविषया विशेषार्थत्वात्.
So the perception you get at this stage is called Vishesha Arthatvat. It gives you the speciality of the object. So usually, if you remember verse 7, Patanjali said, you gain the correct knowledge through three means: Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Agama. Pratyakshanumanagamat pramanani. This was verse 7. So here he takes that idea back. So he tells Shrutau. Shrutau means what? Shruti. What is Shruti? Vedas or the scriptures. So Shruti Anumana. So this knowledge you are gaining right now. See, up until now, the knowledge about the self or the Purusha you had was not from a direct experience. Up until now, right now, we all talk about Purusha. All the people in this class, including the speaker, talk about Purusha. We all know about Purusha. How? It is from Shruti, Vedas, or the scriptures, or from Anumana. But at this point of time, when you come to a direct experience of the Purusha, through the mirror of a Swatik mind, what is going to happen? Shrutau Anumana Prajna Apyam Anya Vishaya Visheshatvad. You get a different perspective of the Purusha. Your Parokshanubhuti is moved or transformed into Aparokshanubhuti. Up until now, I know about Atman because I read in Bhagavad Gita, I read in Yoga Sutra, or I read in Upanishads, and I had some inferences. How? Swapna Drishtanda, Drigdrishya Viveka, Avastatraya, Panchakosha, all those gives me a little bit of logic. Swapna Drishtanda, who am I? In the dream world, I was this. So what is that thing common in me in the dream world and the waking world? Is it my body? No, because dream I used a different body. So what is that common factor? It is the consciousness or the Purusha. So I derive it from inference. And I hear it from the Vedas or the scriptures. But here, what is going to happen? I have a direct one-to-one experience. Parokshanubhuti turns into Aparokshanubhuti, a direct experience. Aparokshanubhuti means it is a direct experience. See, Sanskrit is a language which uses these double negatives. So that's why it's typically A means what? Negative. But negative of the negative. Para aksha, somebody else's I. That is a negative meaning, right? It's not positive. I can say that it is my aksha, mama aksha. No, it's para aksha. Somebody, I know through somebody else's knowledge. So it's from the book, it is from the Vedas, or it is from somewhere else. If you negate that, it is not through somebody else's. I gain knowledge, not through somebody else's. So I gain through myself. So this Parokshanubhuti becomes Aparokshanubhuti, and I get the direct experience of that truth, which is different means it is the same thing, but the focus is different. Because earlier the focus was more on, in the beginning stages of the sadhana, the truth about the self was predominantly given by the Shruti and the Yukti. But now that Shruti and the focus has changed from Shruti Yukti to the Anubhava. That's where it is. So this final stages of the samadhi, you gain that.
Shruta.
So usually the knowledge is commingled. Commingled means it is the inference, scriptural words, etc. And this higher levels of samadhi helps us to experience the truth in its purest form. So this is the Shankaracharya tells, this is the sequence. Scripture gives us the path initially, and the inference, the logic helps me to what? It helps me to remove any doubts I have in the scriptural. Look at the way we uses it. If the yukti is not there, it becomes a blind belief. You need belief. Remember, we talked this in the Bhagavad Gita also. In Vedanta and yoga, faith is not the end. There are so many different religious traditions in the world, including in Hinduism, where the faith is the ultimate end. In Vedanta and yoga, faith is only a means. Faith is only a means to gain that experience. Experience supersedes everything else. Please understand this. This is very important. So that's why Shankaracharya tells what? Scripture gives us the path. It gives us the roadmap. It tells me what it is. It gives me the theoretical knowledge, everything. And inference helps me to remove the doubt. And finally, this direct experience is the actual experience. And there is nothing else which can replace that direct experience. And this direct experience, if I say that it is a post-mortem reward. A lot of people say that when you see God, even in Hinduism, there are certain sects, they will say, you will see the God only in Vaikuntha or in Kailasha. And what is the pre-requirement for seeing the God? I am dead. So there's a beautiful story. I forgot the exact context. In a class, in a theology class, somebody was telling, right? So the teacher said, you will meet face to face with God. What is the inferences? One student said, oh, that's great. I did a lot of punya karma. That's why I ended up in heaven. Another person said, I will be so happy. I have reached the destination of the goal. It means my life. And the backbencher said what? I am dead. So this is not like that. This is not a post-mortem reward. This is something that you can experience here and now by following the path prescribed earlier. And hundreds of masters have lived this, and they came back, not just one or two, hundreds of masters came back and told us that, yeah, Shrinvanti Vishwa, Amrita Surupa, right? That famous verse in the Upanishad. Vivekananda quoted that in his World's Parliament of Religion to get a 5-minute standing ovation in the second time, right? He said, like, he presented a paper on Hinduism in the World's Parliament of Religion. And in that, he said, like, Shrinvanti Vishwa Amrita Surupa. This is the Rishi's words. See, oh, son of eternal happiness. And then he said, right, oh, brothers and sisters, let me call you using that wonderful name. Your son and daughters of eternal happiness. You are the son and daughters of that divinity. I will not dare you to call a sinner. Because you're not deserve to be called as a sinner. You all are that great. Right? And he said there is only one sin, which is calling others as a sinner. it's this particular words got a standing ovation of 5 minutes. The people were ecstatic hearing. You can see such a powerful speaker he was. But this is the idea. So the scriptures gives us the path. Logic and the inference helps us to remove the doubt, and the direct experience gives the actual experience. And this is the unobstructed sight of the Purusha. You get it in 2 stages. First, you get it as a reflection. And finally, when you go to the Nirbija Samadhi, you experience it directly in one hand. You see, there is a slight difference. This is just for the academic purpose. Don't worry too much about it. There is a slight difference between the Vedanta and yoga here. Those who are Vedantic students. Vedanta is what? At this point of time, Vedanta don't think of, means in Vedanta, the Nirvikalpa Samadhi is through Nidithyasanam. You're understanding it, and from there you get it and you go back and remove the habitual understanding. In yoga, it's little bit more on the direct experience. You go to the advanced level of practice and shut down almost all the mind and face to face with the reality. So there is a subtle difference, but both are trying to see the same thing, right? Both are trying to see the self, Atman. The goal is the same, but in the final step, there is a subtle difference. Don't worry about that, but because we are not even there, if you get in there, you can go through the left door or the right door, but there are a few things which is common. That is fine. One is the knowledge. Without the knowledge, you won't reach there. So there is no bypassing of the knowledge, and it is the knowledge that is going to, that direct awareness is the knowledge here. So that's very important. So there is no bypassing of knowledge. Okay. So with that, let's go to the verse 50. So this verse 50.
Tajjah samskarah anya samskara pratibandhi.
So tajjaha, then born, right? So remember, you are in the Nirvichara Samadhi. What happens at that point of time? The sattva of the mind got into a higher stage. The clarity of the mind increased. The purity of the mind increased. And you are able to see a reflection of the whole Atma, meaning the Purusha, by yourself. And no other thought is coming and disturbing this vision. So all the other thoughts are in the Nirodha state or suspended stage, right? And this stage, Patanjali tells, this practice of Nirvichara Samadhi itself is going to develop certain samskaras. What is the beauty of that samskara? These samskara, what is going to happen? It is going to happen, the pratibandhi samskara. It will prevent other samskaras from interfering into this vision. Give you a simple example. Initially, when you started the Savitarka meditation, I'm meditating upon the breathing, pranavikshanam. I'm just focusing on my breath. 20 seconds after, what is going to happen? Some other thoughts comes initially. Initially, if you can meditate on 20 seconds, that's a wonder. That's what they say, right? But you all know that. All the people sitting here, I'm pretty sure you can at least do a 1-minute meditation. When you started, it was 20 seconds, but with the practice, it became 1 minute. Why? Because the meditation itself has developed certain samskaras, pratibandhi samskara, which will prevent the mind from getting disturbed. So this Savichara meditation, where all the other samskaras are suspended. Remember, the cognitive, this function, analytical function of the mind is suspended. You cannot suspend it for a long time. But with this practice, what is going to happen is, you develop that samskara, so that for a prolonged time you can practice this meditation. This is very helpful in the next stage. So Shankaracharya, in his commentary, he tells, imagine, initially it was a line. Imagine that a line is drawn without any break. Later point of time, what you can say, it will be like dotted lines. In between, there is some gap, and that gap, everything is suspended. So this samskaras you develop as a practice of this savichara meditation, it is going to give me the enough support to go further. This is called positive samskaras. So let's try to understand that a little bit more detail. So this is what it is. So like any other experiences, samadhi also leaves some impression in the mind, but it is positive impression. Usual meditation leaves some impression. Because of that only, I'm able to meditate, improve. Otherwise, the meditation will be stagnant. The composition and the structure of the mind can be changed at any point of time. Initially, I was able to meditate only 10 seconds. That 10 seconds became 20 seconds. It became 50 seconds. It became 2 minutes. It can go to days. Remember the experiences on Vivekananda we reflected by his Western disciples? I told you the experience in Thousand Island Park in New York. So initial stages, Vivekananda was not trained to teach meditation. So when he starts meditation, what is going to happen? He just go into that samadhi state. It will take hours. These disciples used to sit there in New York, and he's like a wooden piece of log. He can go to that level of samadhi. And in Thousand Island Parks, you can go there. There is a tree. Even now that tree is there. There is a plank there. It shows what happened. These disciples said like it was raining and pouring and everything. He was in that meditation for hours. So that means he shut down. See, it is up to you. So he himself explains that later, right? It is up to a yogi to decide, because one should not do that. One should do that only in appropriate circumstances. So your control over your mind is such that you can shut down almost the sensory input. Everything comes to you. So you can go to that level. So that was demonstrated by Vivekananda. Mind you, we are not talking about prehistoric times where like a Shankaracharya story where facts and fictions were always messed it up, right? You talk about Shankara going into a king's body, having reincarnation, or Shankara walking over the sky, etc. Not at all. Here we are talking in 1900s, live recorded by Western disciples. I'm not saying that, I mean, the people who are not exposed to this culture, they recorded it and you have it. That is because of these type of samskaras he developed because of his intense meditation. This impression can cause subsequent effects. What is that subsequent effect? You don't want this itself as a samskara. You don't, because if you develop this too much, what is going to happen? Vivekananda tells, it is dangerous. You should not be controlled by these positive samskaras also. So in his famous lecture, he tells, just like an iron ring and iron chain is a cause of trouble, golden chain also can be a cause of trouble. If you sit and meditate like this, it is a problem. So he himself clarifies that. Then these beneficial samskara, it is compared by like a throne, right? So it is used to take other thrones, but eventually it's a throne. So influenced by these meditative samskaras also is dangerous, especially because you may lose yourself completely and you may hit by a bus, you may hit by a natural disaster, and that is not good. So this is that final stage. So now how do you progress from here to the final stage? So Savitarka Samadhi, you have developed Savichara Samadhi, you have Nirvichara Samadhi, you have developed these samskaras. It is going to help you there. And now in the final stage, you can shut even that down. That is the final stage. So we will quickly see that in the last sutra. But don't worry, we are going to pick this back completely in chapter 4, Kaivalya Pada. So one whole chapter is dedicated for this. We are going to see that. So now let's just a bird's eye view, and we will see that. So let's go to that next sutra.
Tasyapi nirodhe sarvanirodhan nirbijah samadhi.
This is the final stage. So tasya api, even that truth-bearing samskaras or the positive samskaras, which is going to prevent other samskaras influencing me. Even that samskaras, when you nirodhe, when you control, or when you have the ability to control that samskara, that sabija samadhi is going to get into nirbija samadhi. Nirbija samadhi means no samskaras are going to help me. Sabija samadhi means I am getting into a state of samadhi only because of my samskaras. And once I gain the control too much, what is going to happen? I can even get beyond that, and I can get a complete meditative absorption, and it won't leave any impression on my mind. And it will not, because only by realizing your own true nature that can happen. So this is the final stage. This is called Nirbija Samadhi. Samadhi without some support of any samskara. That is what is known as Nirbija Samadhi. And this is known as Asamprajnada Samadhi also. Right? So some samadhis are two types, Samprajnada or Sabija Samadhi or Savikalpa Samadhi, or the final stage of the Samadhi is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi or Nirbija Samadhi or Asamprajnada Samadhi. So this is what the final path is. So let's quickly see that particular topic also. So this is the final stage of the Samadhi outlined in the Yoga Sutra. So this Sabija Samadhi, samskaras will be there. And once that is also controlled, you experience the Purusha directly and you get into that final stage. So that stage is known as Kaivalya. In yogic language, the moksha is known as Kaivalya. Kaivalya means Kevalasya Bhava. Kevalasya Bhava means there is only consciousness. I see only consciousness, and there is only consciousness. And this, once you gain, and when you come back, once you realize that the dream is a lucid dream, then I can act in the dream very efficiently, very effectively. Yoga Sutra is not going to talk about how do I live in my life in the world. Yoga Sutra is very much focused only to give me that experience. Then how do I live in the world? That is not the subject of Yoga Sutra. Of course, it talks about a little bit yama, niyama, etc. But that is the topic of Bhagavad Gita. You know that. How do you live your life? But here, it lays out a path which helps you to meditate deep and go through step by step and finally reach the final destination. Now the question is, how do I do it? Theoretically, we know that what and the different milestone and different stages are clearly laid out. Now, how do I proceed? How do I start? Where do I start? That's the topic of next chapter. It is known as Sadhana Pada. Samadhi Pada is giving the what, and the Sadhana Pada is going to give the how. And Vibhuti Pada is once I have it, what are all the skills or the powers I have, some of the benefits. And Kaivalya Pada is going to talk about that final state a little bit in deep. So with that, we completed the verses of Samadhi Pada, 51 verses. And we will do a recap of the entire 51 verses next week. And then we can step into Sadhana Pada. Sadhana Pada, you might, whenever people talk about Patanjali Yoga, they're talking about Sadhana Pada. So that's where this Ashtanga Yoga comes into picture, right? Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi, all this comes in that chapter. So which is pretty much familiar, which can be, where to start, how to start, all those details will be there. But this chapter, especially the last few portion, is a little bit difficult, but don't worry, we are going to come back and go in deep once we cover the Sadhana Pada. So in the Kaivalya Pada. So this is just a bird's eye view. So let's do the final, typically in our tradition, in Bhagavad Gita also, once we complete, there is a final shloka, Charama shloka. And
Nirvicha.
So let's listen to that final.
Iti Patanjali Virachite Yoga Sutra.
So there was some challenges with the audio today. Okay, so it tells Iti Patanjaliya Yoga Sutra. Okay, let's see.
Iti Patanjali Virachite Yoga Sutre Pradhamaha Samadhi Padaha.
Iti, thus Patanjali Virachite. Patanjali, this is added later, not added by Patanjali. Patanjali Virachite, composed by Patanjali, Yoga Sutre, in the book of Yoga Sutra, Prathama Pade, first chapter, Samadhi Pada is complete. That's it. So let's do the final prayer and then we can go to Q&A.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.